Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin Robbie Billups, and it's time for my top 10 comic books of the week. That's right everybody, thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin Robbie Billups. This is a list of my top 10 comic books of the week. Not a spec list, just my favorites, books I would highly recommend. Let's get right into it. At number 10, Web of Venom, Empire's End, number 1 from Marvel Comics. So it's another Web of Venom tie-in one-shot special related to the Venom, the upcoming King in Black, Null is coming and arriving, all that kind of stuff. It's another one of those, but I really liked it because I thought it was a very well-crafted horror comic book. What this is, and yes, it's called Empire's End, so it kind of is a bridge in a way between Empire and the upcoming King in Black, but what it really is it's kind of like a tribute almost to Ridley Scott's Alien. It definitely has that kind of feel. The artwork is dark and moody and it lends itself perfectly for the story, which is from Clay McLeod Chapman. I think he did a great job on the Separation Anxiety one-shot tie-in special for Absolute Carnage last year, so I was really excited to check this one out, and I did like it. Plus, it's got a little bit of a, maybe it's symbolic in this way, but it's almost as if Null is trying to say, or Marvel is trying to say, that Null is so much more of a threat than Empire possibly was, that this, I mean, he ends Empire. But it's about Skrulls and Krees in space, and they come across the path of Null. He's on his way to Earth, and he is wrecking the galaxy on his way there, and this is where we get to find it all out. It's not really super impactful or super necessary for the upcoming King in Black story. If you missed this one, you're not going to be lost when Null arrives, because we all know that Null is coming. They've literally been telling us this for years. It's like Game of Thrones, right? When's it getting here? December. But I really like this one. I thought it was pretty solid one-shot tie-in, leading us more into anticipation for Null's arrival. At number 9, X-Men number 14 from Marvel Comics. I really like what Hickman and company did here. So Leinil Francis Yu's last issue of X-Men as the artist was issue number 12, and that issue was Summoner explaining to Apocalypse the history of Arakko, the other part of the island Krakoa, which is factoring majorly right now in the Ten of Swords event. So this is another chapter of Ten of Swords, part 12 to be exact, but I really liked it because what they did was they reused the artwork that you did for issue number 12, but now Hickman's telling a little bit more of a truthful story about what happened to Arakko. Because we have since found out that Summoner was pretty much lying to Apocalypse and to the X-Men, and now we're getting the real story directly from Genesis. What they've been able to do in the Ten of Swords story so far with the character of Apocalypse, he's always been awesome just because he looked cool, he had the coolest lines, but now we're actually rounding that character out, adding more layers of depth and emotion to it, to Apocalypse, and he's not losing any of his badassery. And that's one of the things I really love. Plus, I do love the interesting tweak that they did to the artwork of having the real story, and then you can kind of go back and compare it. Hickman's doing a great job with the direction of the X-Men books, in my opinion. I'm loving the work he's doing with Apocalypse. This is another one of those great issues that really focuses in on his past, his history, and even his emotions, and it doesn't do it in any kind of a cheesy, corny way. It feels real, and it feels impactful, and it feels necessary, and I loved it. At number 8, Mighty Morphin, number 1 from Boom Studios. So here we go, we got a brand new Power Rangers book, and it's called Mighty Morphin. They dropped the Power Rangers, and it's just Mighty Morphin. But do not be deceived, this is pretty much issue 56 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. It's not a grand new jumping on point. I guess you could jump on here, but you would still be a little bit lost because it is directly continuing the story that Ryan Parrott has been leading and building up into in the pages of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Now, there will be a second Power Rangers book coming out just called Power Rangers. That's going to focus on the Omega Rangers. Mighty Morphin, of course, on that classic Mighty Morphin team set in Season 2. So you got the White Ranger, you got Adam, Rocky, and Aisha there. And I'm loving it. I think it's great. You got the introduction, which happened in the previous issue, but you have a little bit more about the Green Ranger. Who is the Green Ranger, the new one? The mystery is deepening. But one of the things that Ryan Parrott is able to do with the Power Rangers book, and why this makes the one of the picks of the week as far as the top 10 goes, is he's able to take a rather silly show made for kids that didn't really have much didn't have much to it as far as story goes, and he's able to revitalize these characters, flesh them out, have it be very interesting. This feels old school Power Rangers, yet it still feels new and fresh and fun, and I love it. I think it's one of the best superhero comic books out on shelves this week. Mighty Morphin, #1, and if you've been itching to jump into Power Rangers, this is a decent spot to do it, but I would still highly encourage you to check out what's come before, especially since Ryan Parrott's jumped on board, because he's been doing a more phenomenal job. At #7, Black Widow, #3 from Marvel Comics. I think Kelly Thompson's going to be just fine on Black Widow if this story is telling us anything. Issue #1 I thought was okay. It was an intriguing setup, but I didn't really dig on it that much. But then when Kelly Thompson, the writer, gets a little bit more into it in episode 2, my bad Bueller, issue #2, I thought it really kind of rounded itself out a whole lot better. Now we got issue 3, which I thought was the best the best issue of the series yet. The story is exciting, it's dynamic, it's got great artwork, great composition, great flow of action throughout, good solid coloring to anchor it all in, and Kelly Thompson doing a great job. Great dialogue, funny moments, serious moments, and high octane action when it's necessary. This feels a little bit about like Jason Bourne a la Black Widow, but it's still fun, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. 3 issues in, Black Widow is a solid start by Kelly Thompson and Company for Marvel Comics. At #6, Batman, The Adventures Continue, #6 from DC Comics. Batman The Adventures Continue has been continuing the story set in the animated universe where Batman the Animated Series took place. Now, in those Batman shows, and then of course in the subsequent Justice League and Superman and all that stuff, we never really had Jason Todd. We never had Azrael. We didn't have any Deathstroke in the Batman animated show, right? So this is a way to kind of introduce those into that mythology, into that lore, and it's cool. It's written by Paul Dini and Alan Burnett, who are writers of the show. Fantastic. It's got artwork by Ty Templeton. He is no stranger to the Batman Adventures universe, and he does a great job of keeping it Bruce Timm-like, but still doing his own thing and having his own unique stamp on the visual storytelling that's involved. What I love about issue #6 is it goes beyond just trying to cash in on everybody's nostalgia for the original animated series and throw Jason Todd in there because now he's a popular character, unlike in the 90s. There's a lot more to it than that. So in issue #6, we get to the reveal of what happened between the Joker and Jason. What happened to end the career of Robin and start the career of Red Hood. Now, it's very similar to Death of the Family. Very, very similar to Death in the Family. But it has a little bit of differences as well. And I think the differences are very well done. I think they're great choices that Dini and Burnett made to enhance the mood of the character. Now, this is something that is obviously could be considered maybe a kid's book. It is not. This book gets brutal. It gets into it. There's a great conversation between Leslie Tompkins and Bruce at the very beginning of it. All the stuff with Jason and the Joker. And then there's a nice little twist about who Batman decides to save at the end of that whole thing that really hit me hard. I thought it was uber impactful, and I loved it. I thought this has been the best issues of the series yet, and I'm just loving it. I think there's only one more, but don't worry. I'm sure it'll be coming back because this has been pretty successful. At #5, Lost Soldiers, #4 from Image Comics. Lost Soldiers, written by Alesh Kott, is a great exploration on the effects of violence and war on the human psyche, and the way that it can cause people to do nefariously heinous things to other people, right? And what it's like to carry that weight through decades. This centers on a soldier from Vietnam, and in his time at Vietnam, he was assaulted basically by another guy. And he has basically been spending his entire life reliving this moment, kind of flashing back to it. And now he's set himself up. He's like a mercenary or something like that. He's on the streets during a gang war. Maybe it seems like it's south of the border, something like that. But he's put himself in a position where he is now going to come up against the man who assaulted him in Vietnam. And it's all about revenge, but it's not in a glorious kind of way. It feels very heavy. It feels the weight, the impact of that trauma, and I'm absolutely loving it. Alesh Kott's doing a great job with the themes, with the subtext, and the artwork. Oh my goodness. Luca Casalangita. The artwork is great, moody, atmospheric, great composition, elegantly done, and it does a great job of showing the brutality of the story and the brutality of the effect of the violence on the humanity of the characters. I'm loving this book. I think it's great. It's only got one more issue left, and it's a great, solid study on the effects of violence on the human. At number 4, Thor, number 9 from Marvel Comics. So Donny Cates kicks off his next full-on story arc for Thor. I loved The Devourer King. I thought the 2-issue series in between was fun and nice. A nice little moment to step back and breathe, but now we're getting right back into it, right? So you do a Thor book, obviously you got to have a whole take on the Donald Blake Thor situation. So Donny Cates does a great job of taking things that were already established, putting his own spin and twist on it, and then twisting it around into something completely different and unique by the end of it that just had my jaw on the floor. And I was like, whoa, that's freaking awesome. To me, this has been one of the best issues of Thor yet. Nick Klein's artwork, not as strong as it was in the first 6 issues, I think. The coloring by Wilson is still right there. The penciling, though, doesn't feel like it's carrying the weight, but there are moments where it truly shines. It's still great. I just think it felt a little bit rushed compared to some of the others, but I loved this book. I thought it was great. I love Cates and Company's take on the Donald Blake aspect of the mythos of Thor and the twist that they put on it. I love it. I'm loving the artwork. I'm loving this run. You can tell that Donny Cates is passionate about Thor. That passion oozes off the pages. There's some great moments, especially with Loki and Thor here, but I'm telling you, it's what happens at the end. At the very last few pages of that issue is going to have us all talking. At number 3, Coffin Bound, number 8 from Image Comics. So this is the last issue of Coffin Bound, Arc 2, and I loved it. We really hit the story right at the crescendo in issue number 7. It was a double-sized issue, and everything kind of came to a head. So what issue number 8 is it's the resolution. It's the moment that Dan Watters, the writer, is taking to let the story just kind of sink in, reveal a little bit more detail about the thematic relevance of this story and how it ties into the overall narrative of Coffin Bound. I love this book. Dan Watters is doing something. I've said it before. I'll say it again. The poetry of Neil Gaiman's fantasy work like Sandman, but the raw realness of something like a Grindhouse film right out of the 70s. I'm loving it. It's dirty. It's irreverent. It's saying a lot, though. And it's literally so impeccably, beautifully written. The language used. Dan Watters is a master of the English language, of turning a phrase, of making things have more than one meaning, and juxtapositioning that against the artwork. Strong, gritty, dirty, grimy artwork by Danny, and coloring by Brad Simpson. And Aditya Bidikar as the letterer. Enough said. Coffin Bound's one of my favorite books. It's a challenge. It doesn't spoon feed the reader anything. You really got to work to try to dig into this book. That's the stuff I love the most, and if the world won't have me, I'll just have Coffin Bound. I love this book. If you've never read it, the trade's coming out in December. Some really great explorations on addiction, faith, God, and existential crisis, and personifications of things like Entropy, which Madam Entropy may just be my favorite new character of 2020. Dan Watters, Danny, Brad Simpson, Aditya Bidikar, and Emma Price. Such an amazing job on Coffin Bound. This one is something truly unique and special, and I'm sure you'll see it on the top 10 of the year list. At number 2, Lonely Receiver, number 3 from Aftershock. So writer Zach Thompson's been doing something really phenomenal here with Lonely Receiver. He is telling the story of dealing with the breakup. A long-term relationship ends, and then all of a sudden you're kind of left on your own. You're left thinking over and over, what did I do? Could I have done this different? Could they have done this different? How could we have worked it out? Maybe we should have done this. Maybe we could have done this. Maybe it was all worthless. All that fear, all that anxiety, that's something that Zach Thompson's been exploring in the first 2 issues of this crazy cool sci-fi horror psychological drama. And I'm loving it. But in issue 3, we're now hitting the point of the rebound. The moment where the bereaved basically find somebody new that likes them. But all they're doing is reading into them what they want to see. All they're doing is trying to basically find another one of the one that they lost. That's what's dealt with in Lonely Receiver, and it reaches a crescendo of absolute horror and violence towards the end of this book that I just thought was phenomenal. Jen Hickman's artwork, though, Jen Hickman, this is some of their best artwork ever. I was very impressed with their work on Moth and Whisper. Very impressed with their work on Test. Very impressed with how they can switch and shift their styles to blend into whatever atmosphere and tone the story is trying to set. Lonely Receiver to me is their best work. I love this. The artwork is super solid. The composition is absolutely magnificent. And it's such a great, just grounded book. I really, really feel Lonely Receiver. And I think that Zach Thompson, Jen Hickman, Simon Bolin and company are really crafting something personal but unnerving. And it's almost, I would say, it's very brave to let so much of this out there, because a lot of people like to kind of bottle up these feelings, but Lonely Receiver is really getting into all of them with a lot of weird, crazy sci-fi concepts all around it. I'm loving this book. It just keeps getting better. Super solid. And at number 1, crossover number 1 from Image Comics. Donny Cates does it again, a number 1 issue that I absolutely love. This is written by Donny Cates. It's also got artwork by Jeff Shaw. Jeff Shaw was the artist on God Country. So this is the writer and the artist of God Country. Wow. So the first issue of this has got a great, wild, cool concept. What if a giant, mega superhero summer event crash landed on Earth? How would humanity deal with that? What would our response be? Would we ban superhero fiction? Would comic shops become like really like low-key type places where they like cease to exist? What would happen in this world? And so Donny Cates does a great job of taking a really cool, crazy concept, grounding it in reality. As crazy as it seems, this book is wild, and it's going to reach pretty far. It's rather ambitious, but I thought it actually handled the first issue very well. Jeff Shaw's artwork was great. The coloring by Dee Cunniffe was really sharp and solid. I like the lettering by John J. Hill, but it's really Cates' ambition with this project, along with Shaw and company, that really sets this out. And even though it's a wild superhero love letter type thing, it's crazy. It's got a lot of big ideas in it, but basically at the heart of it, it's just a small story about humanity. It's a story about a woman, and it's a story about a dude, and it's a story about a little girl, and everything in between. And all the big crazy superhero wackiness is all just kind of set dressing to tell a very grounded, real, and emotional story. This is a setup issue. It does a great job of delivering the concept to us, introducing the characters, making them compelling and relatable, and then setting us up with an ending that was pretty freaking cool, a great shocker, and I'm excited to see where they go. Crossover was something incredibly pleasing to me, and I loved it so much, it was the pick of the week. So what was your pick of the week? What's your top 5? What's your top 3? What's your top 10? Hell, what's your top 20? I don't care. What comic books are you reading? What are you digging? Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Please do like, share, and subscribe. And join us over at popculturephilosophers.com for podcasts and a whole lot more. And if you want to support the channel, you can do so at patreon.com/PCP. Do so? You can do so at patreon.com/PCP. Anyway, I've been Rockin Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Keep on reading.